Hi, my name is Jacob. I'm a real estate investor in Greater Cleveland, and I'm a real estate agent licensed in the state of Ohio. I've been getting a question that makes perfect sense to me, and I'd have the same question from my clients and potential clients saying, how on earth can you represent me if you don't live in Greater Cleveland or in Ohio at all? Makes sense. I think the traditional model for real estate is that a real estate agent lives in the locale that they're operating within, that they can physically visit a house, that they can describe the qualities of the house with a certain level of detail and comfort and the colors and the layout and all those things. And traditionally, the person who's actually working to purchase a house is a homeowner. They're trying to buy the house for themselves. Now, the model for investment is different, and the model for investment from abroad is even more different. And the model from investment outside of the United States, not just outside of Ohio, is even more different because you have people that are not United States citizens that are trying to find true investment opportunities in general in the United States, in particular in my case in Ohio. So the question comes up, how could I be a virtual real estate agent? And I just want to give an answer to that question and answer the question in such a way that hopefully you'll feel that not only am I able to do this job, but actually there are certain scenarios where I'm better able to do this job than the next real estate agent that's actually local. So first of all, fitting experience, and I think this is the key. I invest from abroad. I actually live in Israel, and I invest in Greater Cleveland. And I've invested in all different types of properties. Single-family homes, duplexes, triplexes, quadruplexes. I've also invested in lower income areas, moderate income areas, and higher income areas. I've deployed tactics or strategies like lease to own on a number of occasions. I've deployed strategies like seller financing. And these are things that are very well discussed, very much discussed in the real estate world, but not most real estate agents don't necessarily have this kind of experience. So I do, and in that way I provide some true experience and true understanding of some of the scenarios that my investor colleagues would like my assistance to achieve, okay? Number two, strategic approach. So every property is different, and it's not to say that it looks different, right? That's to say that the process by which you go about investigating the property and understanding whether it's a good investment is different. So I don't physically need to walk into a building most of the time to determine that it's not a good investment. I will have to either walk into the building or send someone to walk into the building if I determine that it seems to be a good investment, just to get that final understanding as to whether it is a good investment. So in a lot of cases, you have certain listings, for example, that the real estate agent on the seller side says, you can't enter this property until there's an agreement in place. Well, I guess that makes it easy for me because I could just send an offer, or I could do all my analysis with my client, and they could come to their conclusions, and then they can send an offer based on what they feel is right. And only then will we need to send someone into the property. That's easy. There are certain real estate agents that will say, no, you're not allowed to make an offer, or we're not going to accept your offer on this property until you viewed the property. Well, that's no problem because we can always send someone to view the property. If we understand that this is going to be a rental situation, well, we want to send someone who's knowledgeable about what needs to be done to create the best value rental for that particular area. So I personally am not necessarily the right person to go and view the property, right? I would like to send a leasing agent who knows what that area needs and who does tons of leasing work in that area to view the property. So personally, I use my leasing agent all the time. She's phenomenal. I think she's absolutely amazing, and she can do all different types of walkthroughs and videos and analyses of certain locations and areas based on her experience leasing all over Greater Cleveland. Certain strategies require you have to know the tenant very well. There are certain scenarios where you don't want to buy property without getting a very clear understanding about the tenant and what's going on with them. There are certain scenarios where you really need to know about a particular issue that occurred in the past, and that requires some understanding of construction. So all these things are to say that like walking into the property is not always the most important thing to do when we're talking about buying a property for investment. Honestly, the financing of it is also critical, especially if there's someone who doesn't live in the area or lives outside of the country and has no U.S. citizenship. Right? The financing of a purchase requires a different approach than someone who's a United States citizen. And similarly, the analysis of the property, from the perspective of whether it's a good return on investment, that doesn't require walking into the building at all, except for the fact that you want to know how much work needs to be done in the building in order to raise it to the level of reasonableness such that a standard tenant for this area can come in. Or if you're trying to raise the level beyond that, so you want to get a more higher quality tenant, the same analysis would take place. So it's very important to have a clear understanding of how the financing works, how the financial analysis works, different strategies and approaches in different locations around the area, around Greater Cleveland, in order to maximize a person's investment. And all that's to say that physically walking into the property is actually a very small part of the real estate agent's job. And it can also be supplemented, as I supplement it for my own investments, by someone else who actually has a better approach or a better understanding of what needs to be done in order to create the best space. So that's my leasing agent, sometimes that's my contractor, sometimes that's a different contractor who does higher quality work, right? And there's also different contractors that are needed for different areas, right? You might have a sort of a standard sort of called boring rental where you're not really doing anything nice or special, you're just getting it up and running. On the flip side, you might have nicer areas where you have to do something nice. You have to do some, trim or crown molding or anything, things like that. Special paint jobs, right? There are different levels of quality that you need for different locations. And the strategy there is important. All that is to say, the strategic approach to investing, I think is very important. And I'm not sure that you're going to get that out of someone that doesn't have the kind of experience that I personally have investing in different locations and in different types of properties. The third over here is a client-focused and honest approach. I'd like to believe that most people in this world are client-focused and honest when their job is to be client-focused. I do know that there are some weird incentives when it comes to real estate agents. So a real estate agent has a tremendous incentive to work quickly because the real estate agent doesn't get paid at all until they complete the sale. And that has a lot of impacts on the real estate agent's psychology as they go through the process of trying to help sell a property. For example, if there are multiple offers, the real estate agent would love to just choose the highest one and move on, or not spend a long time bumping up the price between the various offerers in order to get the best for their client. Because the faster they can move, the better they can do. So one of the main tactics or one of the approaches used by real estate agents that I've experienced is they call for highest and best. What does that mean? They want to try and tell all the people that are offering on this property to give their best offer that they could possibly imagine, and then the real estate agent will thus choose the top offer. I don't know if it's certainly honest, there's nothing dishonest about it, but I don't know if that's the best approach. I don't know if it's the most client-focused approach. This can be debated, but I think the best approach is to actually play the offers against each other and create an auction situation where the best offer wins, right? So maybe you're giving up on the possibility that someone randomly makes an offer quite a lot higher than someone else might have been willing to go, but at least you can create a situation where you're confident that you've gotten the highest offer, or at least above the second highest offer for this property. And there are different strategies associated with this. But anyway, the point is that moving quickly is very valuable to a real estate agent, but the best price is what's most important to the seller. And I think Freakonomics or Malcolm Gladwell did a whole analysis about this exact subject, which I vaguely recall in the background. So worth a mention there. Anyway, and also honesty. So I think it's because the sale is so critical to a real estate agent, I think it's very easy for certain real estate agents to kind of overly recommend a certain property for a buyer, for example, or overly push their seller to sell for a lower price because it'll get the job done and they'll get their commission. And the difference between, $10,000 for the seller is much less impactful than it is for the real estate agent. Of course, the incentives are aligned. The higher the price, the better off we'll be. But if we're sort of within this range where it's kind of like, $5,000, maybe even $10,000 in either direction, it's kind of like for the real estate agent, it's not that different, right? The real estate agent knows that they're getting involved in a certain quality of property. There's a certain range that they can expect to receive, and it's not really going to go much outside of that range. So anyway, bottom line is I sometimes shoot myself in the foot for my client, which people might tell me is a bad decision, certainly for the short term, but I think for the long term it'll play out well because people will feel like I'm advocating for their own interests very much so, as opposed to for my own. And maybe they'll send me other clients for the same reason that they were excited about that fact. So anyway, that's the number 3, client-focused and honest approach. So the bottom line here is I have very specific and interesting experience as a real estate investor that can help those who are also investing from outside of Ohio, outside of Greater Cleveland. I also have a strategic approach where I don't just look at the particular moment in time, but I do think of very many other things going on around the purchase. Maybe that's true of most investors, I'm not sure, but personally I believe that I care a lot about that. And the third one is that it's client focused and honest, and I really do mean that. I'm really very careful to present the facts as they are. In fact, sometimes when there's a conflict of interest, I say so. For example, if someone says to me, like, what do you think I should do? Right? Let's say they're a buyer and the seller gives them the counter offer, and the buyer says, what do you think I should do? Should I take the offer? Well, now, of course, as a real estate agent, my interest is to say, yeah, take the offer. It's a great offer, great, you know. But that's not necessarily the case. And I often say to people, I say, listen, you're asking the real estate agent to make a decision for you, which I really can't do. So, of course, I want you to buy this. I want you to move forward, but you know, this is really your decision. I want you to think about it, and I want you to come back to me. I don't want to prejudice your decision because of my own incentives and my own biases. So anyway, that's my approach, I'd say, in a nutshell, to investing in real estate from abroad. And one of the reasons why I think that I personally can provide a lot of value for others that are investing abroad. I've thought to myself whether I should start, you know, trying to sell people's houses who live there. I just don't think it's a good use of my time, because there's so many other real estate agents that have that kind of experience. But my personal experience of investing from abroad in various types of properties, residential properties, I do believe can help you, if you're watching this, as someone who's investing abroad, or someone who you know who wants to take the plunge and invest in some kind of asset that produces income over time. So thank you very much. You can find me at www.silvermets.me. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn, Jacob Silvermets. I'm the only one, and I look forward to connecting. Thank you.